Hi, I'm Broma,
And I'm Radhika, and
and
together
together we're
we
Prom Rad.
Prime Rad. Today we are really excited to talk about a new show that just premiered on Amazon Prime. It is from the UK and created by Riz Ahmed, and the title of the show is Bait. The show centers on Riz Ahmed's character named Shah Latif. He is a working actor in London and he has the opportunity to audition to become the next James Bond, which is a hot topic in Hollywood right now. And as he leaves his audition, paparazzi catch him leaving, and the news comes out that he is the front runner for for stepping into this character. And from there, his life kind of devolves, and he is dealing with the weight of what that means for his career, for his family, for brown people at large. And it kind of becomes a conspiracy thriller. He's navigating what it means for a brown person to step into a role that is supposed to be for white people. It is a British role, but what does that actually mean? And it's really questioning a lot of things about representation. So there's a lot to dig in here, and we're really excited to talk about it. All 6 episodes are out right now on Amazon Prime, or sorry, all 6 episodes are out now on Prime Video, and can't get the publicist coming for me.
Yeah.
Um, and we're not going to talk too much spoilery conversation, but there are a couple things that happen in the show that we want to dig into. So this is just a blanket spoiler warning. If you don't want to know anything, hit pause, watch the show, and then come back.
Yeah, and crucially, it'll take you like 2 to 3 hours. It is so bingeable. I think we both watched it in like one sitting because it's half-hour episodes. It's very fast-paced. It's very funny. So I want to actually open this up with a quote from Riz himself from a piece that he wrote in The Guardian in September of 2016. This is a piece that I have not forgotten since it came out. The piece is called Typecast as a Terrorist, and he basically writes about what we've heard from many South Asian actors about the kind of roles that they get pigeonholed into and the stereotypes. We've heard it many times about the terrorist, the taxi driver, the convenience store owner, and so much of the past 10 years, especially in representation, but before that too has been kind of like pushing inch by inch past that. And I think the most recent decade just really blowing past it and finding all these new and interesting roles and putting people in the driver's seat of also creating and producing and like making the roles that they wanted to see for themselves. So in the piece, Riz talks about how even then in 2016 he was no longer being typecast as a radical Muslim. Like that's the deck of the article. He talks about the different stages of representation along that journey. Stage one is the two-dimensional stereotype, which is what I just mentioned, the cab driver, terrorist, convenience store owner. Stage two is this subversive portrayal taking place on ethnic terrain but aiming to challenge stereotypes. And stage three is the promised land, where you play a character whose story is not intrinsically linked to his race. There, I am not a terror suspect nor a victim of forced marriage. There, my name might even be Dave. And I have thought about this piece constantly since it came out because I really disagreed with that last part of it. Because to me, that felt like pushing this notion that the ideal representation or characterization or roles are ultimately written for white actors, and that the promised land for a minority actor is to just play a role that was written for a white person, a role that is cleansed of all its actual cultural signifiers, and that to me is not what I think we should be aiming for. Like, if you are a South Asian character actor with that history and that heritage, and you want it to be portrayed in the character, like, his name shouldn't be Dave. His name could be Dave.
Dave.
They're so close together. But I bring that up because I feel like Bait is in direct conversation with this piece and shows such an exciting evolution of Riz's own ideology on this topic, where he goes in, he plays a South Asian actor who wants to play this character that was originally written as white, who on this journey, as he's unpacking its relationship to his own identity and family and history, realizes that he doesn't want to sacrifice that part of himself. And maybe that's a realization that the actor himself has had over this time. The piece itself also is more nuanced than that. I don't want to say that he just like wrote this essay about wanting to play a white guy, but that Dave line has like been so in my brain for 10 years. I loved this show. I would love to hear your high level thoughts. It's so crazy. I love when Desi people get to be this kind of crazy and absurd on screen. You know, I loved Polite Society and We Are Lady Parts, and it has a lot of that kind of artistry and style in it. I just thought it went to some really cool meta places with the character, not just of Shah Jahan, but of James Bond. I'm so excited to dig into it.
Yeah, similarly, I loved it. My first thing was it's so Desi and it's so intrinsic to the characters. And from episode 1, the auntie banter, they're setting up for Eid and talking about who should host it and talking behind each other's backs. And then, you know, there's all these little moments that I was like, these are so recognizable to us, yet I do think they're very accessible to a common audience. And having it all couched in the conversation of representation, and him specifically, this isn't high level, so sorry, but in the first episode, it begins in his audition, and he's crushing it until there's a line where the Bond girl, which we are dressed up as Bond girls today, but in that episode, the Bond girl basically says something to the effect of, who are you, and who do you think you are, and who are you inside? And he can't get past that. He knows the line in his head, but he can't answer it because it's dealing with his own issues with identity and what it means for him to be trying to have this role. And then when we peel back the layers, we see some of the issues that he has, like interpersonal issues that he has with his family and his friends, and just his place in that society. So I thought it was saying so many interesting things, and it wasn't sacrificing the Pakistani Desi part of it, which I was really impressed by. And there are things that I kind of bumped on, and we'll get into that later, but I think those are minor in the grand scheme of what the show was actually trying to say.
Yes, it's Desi in such an effortless way, and I think that's such a minor distinction, but you and I especially are sensitive to it and can clock when it's coming from an authentic place and not someone kind of going through the checklist and being like, okay, like, what else can we add here? What other needle drops can we do, or cameos can we have, or like, how do we do this moment but make it brown? Like, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel arbitrary at all in that way. And to that point and yours, at no point is the conflict for Shah Jahan really that he is struggling with his identity as a British Asian actor. It's more that he has these specific relationships with his family, with his cousin, and with his ex, and those things that he's kind of unpacking. Like, he just has some kind of personal work to do, just introspection and confidence building before he can ascend into a role like this and take on the lifestyle change attached to it. But he's not really sitting there being like, yeah, I want to, you know, again, he's not aspiring to play Dave.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, he's trying to be James Bond, but he's trying to be a brown James Bond. And not being like, I'm gonna change my name to James after this.
Yeah.
Like, that is not the point. Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting send-up of Hollywood, and there's a lot of those types of shows on the market right now. Like, of course, The Studio, but even some things like Hacks and Bads of Bollywood. Like, there are a lot of messages in the market right now that are trying to deal with what's happening behind the scenes and who these people are. I loved the part on when someone stops him on the street and is so excited to see him and then thinks that he's Dev Patel, and he's just like, you know what? Yeah, Slumdog Millionaire was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't feel like that joke forced. You know, it was really funny, and I thought it was written just enough that it wasn't hitting you over the head with it.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately, I was the auntie in that scene because watching was thinking that. I was like, well, Dave Patel's really tall. And then I was like, Brahma, don't be like that.
Riz is self-aware.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought it was really self-aware about just like online culture too. There's a moment midway through the series where he has to apologize for something, and he's doing his, not notes app apology, but it's a video version of that where he's talking to camera being like, I'm so sorry and whatever. Or like, maybe he's not supposed to say sorry, but
I think we have to pause there and just appreciate the fact that he's so funny in this. He's so
yeah.
funny in this. And such a specific type of funny. Like you said, it's really self-aware. It's really sharp. Like, the tone of this show is so, so sharp, but there's a confidence to it. I love when a show just knows exactly what it is out the gate and is like, get on board or stay home. And it's quite wild at times. That's reflected in the camera work. It's a single cam comedy. The cinematography is very like action movie type sometimes. And also it does like mockumentary stuff, like the quick zooms in on someone's facial expression. There's like a lot of handheld like tracking kind of stuff between people's faces, which is really unusual and creates a disorientation in the viewer. but at the same time, it's there from the top, and it's just like, hey, this is what it's gonna be like. You're gonna feel a little weird. You're gonna feel a little stressed. You're also gonna laugh. I've gone away from my point, which was that Riz is so funny in this. He cracked me up in that apology scene in one of the outtakes of it. It was really good.
He's so good. Yeah, and that camera work really speaks to his character's state of mind, which obviously that's must be the reason why they did it that way. But it, like you said, it's from the jump that it's like that. So you're already like, what is happening, and trying to gain your bearings of where you are in the scene and what's happening, because there's so much happening in every scene.
The layers to this, again, to the self-awareness and to the meta of it all. For those who don't know, Amazon MGM Studios owns the James Bond franchise now. So they're very aware of the conversation around who is the next Bond and what is happening within this show. And Riz has positioned himself so interestingly because he is great as Shah as Bond in a way that I was like, is this gonna lead into him becoming James Bond? But at the same time, this show is so in intensely clever and such a magic trick that I don't want him to be Bond because that feels like a waste of his abilities. Like clearly he has so much more to give as like a creator, producer, writer, and performer. And then also they dive into the character of Bond in a different way that I feel like a lot of Bond movies don't. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of the earlier ones, and I probably will not at this point. But like even the dialogue in his like fake audition scenes is so interesting. And by the end, I was like, oh my God, James Bond is not a secret agent. He is not an action star. He is an actor. And that feeds into it so interestingly as well throughout that arc. Like, I think I was kind of coming to that realization at the same time as Shah, or probably a bit later than him, but like, that was so cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting the way that it's kind of interrogating what getting a role like that would do to someone, and the weight of carrying, whether you're brown or white or what, stepping into something of with that high of stakes will mess with your head, and he is very explicit about that. Of course, he's doing it through the lens of a Pakistani British actor, but that could apply to anyone that gets offered that role or gets has to take on that mantle.
Yeah, it made me think about, he's not asking this question explicitly, but like, how do studios for big franchises protect minority actors from this kind of thing, from the shakeup, from the online abuse and the hatred and the hate crime that he experiences? Because we've seen that happen in Marvel. We've seen that happen in Star Wars, especially. That fandom is kind of notorious for just losing it anytime a person of color is cast and then abusing them. Like Kelly Marie Tran left social media and then was barely in The Rise of Skywalker. So what does the studio do to protect someone from that, to speak to their audience and be like, hey, you need to get on board with this, or look inward and maybe not just spew hate online. And the same thing where if the new Bond is an actor of color, that's probably going to happen. And how is Amazon MGM Studios going to handle that? Like, they're being asked these questions from within, from this early stage.
That's such a good point, and I would be curious how they handle that. They do posit that someone of Dev Patel's stature would be maybe welcomed with open arms, but of course, those are all hypotheticals. But it is interesting to think about which people of color are accepted into a role like that versus the ones that maybe would get that backlash.
Yeah, and what's nice is that in the casting of this show, Riz has so many great, like, A-game British Asian actors. A lot of actors who people will think, like, where do I know them from? And I've seen them here. And they're all, like, they're doing exceptional TV work. And I think tonally, like, understand what this is. Like, Himesh Patel, freaking loved his, like, one little episode. This is my shout out to HBO's The Franchise, a 10-episode, one-season canceled show that maybe only I watched, but which is quite similar tonally to this, and he's really great in that. Ritu Arya, who was in Polite Society, a lot of people who have just, like, cut their teeth on this, like, weird they see vibes.
And Naban Rizwan, his little like Bollywood moment that he gets is so fun.
Yeah.
And I like that the show kind of plays with that because that is part of our heritage, and especially in a cinematic sense, we can be over the top and we should be proud of that. And that's like part of the excitement. It's employed in such a perfect way because it's the introduction of this character that they've, been talking about, and there's a lot of lore behind, but his introduction lives up to that moment.
Naban Rizwan and Himesh Patel together. Welcome back, Station 11.
And Heem's just showing up. That was fun too, because that's Riz's physical partner, the Sweatshop
Yeah.
Boys. Love them.
Yeah, and then my favorite, totally unexpected cameo, the voice of the pig's head. Turn your
So,
audio down. I'm gonna say it. Sir. Yeah, maybe we just say sir, and then
sir.
nothing else. You know, if you know, you know. I thought it was someone pretending to be sir, but it was sir. And I've never heard sir speak like that. That was fun. It reminded me of a John McEnroe narrating Never Have I Ever. Just like,
Yes.
who's a random white man with very different credits that we can invite into this?
Yeah, it was jarring at first, especially knowing that you don't see his face. It's literally just a pig's head. I like the introduction of that because it looks like he's on a podcast with Sir. So at first, it seems plausible because the news is out that he's potentially James
And
Bond, and
everyone's got a podcast these
and
days, am I right, ladies?
everyone is a podcast bro. And so I liked that that was the introduction, and then the slow devolution of that. Sir continues to needle him a little bit more, and then at the end, it's revealed that it's the pig head that was part of the hate crime that occurred in the first episode. And Shah Latif has kind of fashioned it as his little therapist, and he's continues to have these conversations throughout. And this is where the show lost me just a little bit
And
because,
I knew it would. I was like, every time that prop showed up again, I was like, oh no, that's a strike from Radhika. She's not gonna, especially the final scene, I was like, we're
yeah,
gonna
that
lose
was
her, I think.
and okay, and here's the thing is I was with it at the beginning because I
It
thought it was
reminded me of, did you watch Number One Happy Family USA?
I did not.
It's Rami's animated show that's also on Prime Video, in which his character, who's like an 11-year-old boy, befriends a talking lamb that his family is meant to slaughter and eat. Lammy, who just becomes his little like
Oh
emotional
no.
support animal. It's okay, Lammy survives.
Oh, okay. I liked the use of it, it's a pig's head in Islam that's, not a symbol that you would revere in any type of way. And so I was with it while it was kind of like introducing that concept. As it went on, I just don't think the show did enough to explain his mental state. And
Yeah.
it left me at the end, I was like, is this man schizophrenic? Should he be out in the world, like, unmedicated? Like, there was just some questions that I had, especially because in the fifth episode, he has a very harrowing daydream where he's,
Yeah. Like
you know,
psychotic break, maybe? I'm not an expert.
yeah, and
But
it's a very violent scene that, ultimately we found out is playing out in his head. So I was just a little bit like I wish that they had done more with that because if you introduce something that heavy and it's obviously it's the turmoil of having this attention and the pressure and all of that, but I don't think that it answered the question for me.
yeah, it was a bit too much because I knew at that point in episode 5, I was like, okay, this is not real. Because it had happened enough times by then that I was like, it's a little too much hallucination. There's like, how much is too much? And you know it when you get there, once you've crossed into that territory. And I think, yeah, the emotional motivation behind that, because the previous episode, I think it's 3, is the Eid celebration with his family, where we get into kind of some of the deeper, darker stuff that they're dealing with as well, which we don't get much further into, other than like there is a history of mental illness possibly in his family. There is a trauma that is still holding on to all of them and that they're still grieving and processing. And I don't, that's not to say that it's like that's the central thing affecting him in the context of this whole Bond journey, but it's obviously a piece of what he's grappling with, and I don't think he really resolved it beyond kind of being like, I'm sorry, and then talking it out with his cousin. If the show gets picked up, that can be the ongoing journey. Like, that isn't something he's going to solve in one episode. Those are relationships he needs to continuously work at. But for what was introduced this season, that arc felt a little unfinished.
It felt unfinished, and this is where I'm wondering, like 6 episodes is not enough to maybe go through that journey. And then I'm also questioning what the purpose of introducing that is because I think there's enough outside of introducing mental illness to grapple with and to talk about and explore that I don't know that it was necessary to even have that be part of it. And if you are going to include it, then I would like for you to actually explore it. So I think that was like my one critique of the show. I just wish that it had done more with that, especially because it's like quite a sight gag every time you see that head, and he's like carrying it around with him all over London, and like,
Yeah.
yes, I want the payoff to be a little bit better, and so for me, it just didn't land.
What did you think of his relationship with Rituaria's character? There's like that one episode spotlighting it, and it's kind of like bits and pieces before. For me, mainly, it was like, I actually loved their chemistry. In episode 4, I was like, wait, this is jumping off the screen. And also the setting in that one is really exciting. Like the way they're just like moving around. It's like a night shoot, and then this like glowing paint in the club. But also the dialogue. I believe Ben Carlin is the head writer. He's credited as writer on a bunch of these episodes. Well, I guess like along with Riz because they're both showrunners. Dialogue was so great, like just the banter, the pace of it, really interesting. I just love when dialogue goes places you wouldn't expect, and it did that a lot, especially with the humor. Maybe also because it's very like London British humor and not necessarily my main area, but I didn't find it predictable at all, and I was just like episode 4, I was wrapped in my seat, like just shoulders back, like glued to the screen, completely locked in.
It should be no surprise to you that that was my favorite episode of
It's
this
not.
series because I love a little like romantic reunion, and like you said, their chemistry is so palpable. And I think what was so impressive is that before that, but the first 3 episodes, we get very small moments with them, and they're mostly tense and they're butting heads. And then in this episode, so immediately we unpack and we see their relationship, and we weren't there for them actually dating, but we see the chemistry that they have, and just the way that they know each other, like you said, through the dialogue. It does so much. And like even just small things, like there was a moment where they're at the Pakistani restaurant, and I think he starts speaking Urdu, and she's like, that doesn't work here. Like,
Yeah.
like everyone speaks the language here. It's just like funny little, like you said, banter that they have, and it was so like playful, but they know each other so well, and those are the people that can see you the clearest. And I think she's that person for him, and that's why he can't really let go of her.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is like they don't revert back. The obvious ending to that episode is that they end up together, which, as I'm saying, I realize this also reminded me of the Panic on Central Park from
Yeah.
Girls. Oh, chilling.
And
In a very different way, but where again you're just like stuck on these two people this whole episode, and it's just it's validating also to see that like nothing will ever erase that history. Nothing will ever erase like the chemistry that they have or the way that they know each other and see each other, but their lives have diverged, and also clearly like for them to move on, they can't be in each other's lives, which she recognizes. But they have that like back and forth, but it's not necessarily flirty. And like maybe he wants it to be, and he wants it to lead to that like romantic ending where they ride off into the London sunrise together, but it can still be this the close relationship. It can still contain the history and the context without moving forward in that way.
yeah, and I think it's important that we root for them. Like I was rooting for them to have this night together, but at the end I was like, yeah, you guys shouldn't be together. It was one of those where I'm like, I'm enjoying just hanging out with you guys. And like you said with the writing, there was a few other moments where they are in their lives now is unraveled slowly but surely. And the one that I'm thinking of is the passports, where he picks up on it being passports plural, and he was like, why didn't you tell me that you have a boyfriend and that you're going there with him, and the way that those things are revealed was really well done in my opinion. And like I could have lived in a few more episodes of that, but the restraint of keeping it one episode is very important too.
And I also remember between 3 and 4 being like, well, why did she block him? Like, he arrives at the restaurant and then it's like, okay, I'm like, things seem pretty copacetic, but then it becomes clear that like that's why. I'm like, because she can't have this energy still in her life, which is sad, but it's a reality for a lot of people. Like, it's not that she hates him. She's just like, I gotta move on.
Who am I us?
Also within that and in other parts of the show, Shah still has touches of actor narcissism, like it's just part of him. But this is like neither here nor there, but this would have been a very fun like 90-minute feature film.
Yes.
Just like a fun little like stressful romp.
A little, yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I need season 2 because I kind of feel like I'm good with it, especially the way it ends, which spoilers once again, but it kind of feels like he's nailing his audition and it might actually happen for him. And I feel like that's a perfect kind of ambiguous ending to leave it on.
I also want him to be free to make more cool, weird shit.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to talk about was the music
Yes.
because it employs a lot of Hindi and Urdu songs that I didn't know, and they're very like 70s Bollywood vibes, and it sets a really fun tone for this because it's dealing with tradition, but it also feels contemporary in a way, and it really grounds the show in the tone that it's going for of like the playful, multicultural aspect of the show. Did you recognize any of the songs? Because I didn't.
No.
It kind of like even called back to the music project Sweatshop Boys that he had with Heems. Like it's very of that nature. So I thought it just added such a fun little flair to it. It really gave you time and place of the world that that show is living in. And I love when music does that.
So we give Bait on Prime Video 4 thumbs up. And listen, as you know, you can like, subscribe, follow, comment, share, save, etc. All the verbs with our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So maybe drop a comment. What did you think of Bait? Let's have a conversation. Let's engage
Yeah,
with art.
let us know what you thought about Sir and the pig head
Yeah.
specifically, because I'm very curious how that's going to go over. Yeah, and we'd love to hear from everyone. We are officially on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, truly everywhere. So follow us, and we'll be back next week with another episode. We are on a weekly schedule these days.
We got time.
Yeah, we're having fun.
All right, fun. We're dressing up.